Lila had always believed that love would arrive loudly, like fireworks bursting across a summer sky or music swelling in the background of a perfect moment. She imagined it would be obvious and dazzling, impossible to miss. Instead, it arrived quietly on a rainy Tuesday afternoon in October. The rain had painted the windows of Ashford High in silver streaks, and the corridors smelled faintly of wet coats and pencil shavings. Lila sat at her usual table in the library, her headphones resting around her neck, a half-finished sketch in front of her. She was drawing the old oak tree that stood at the edge of the school field, the one that had survived decades of storms and still leaned slightly to the left as if listening to secrets. Across the table, someone cleared his throat. "Sorry, are you using this chair?" Lila looked up. The boy standing there had rain caught in his dark curls and a notebook tucked awkwardly under his arm. His eyes were warm brown, curious but careful. "No," she said quickly, sliding her bag out of the way. "Go ahead." "Thanks." He sat down, placing his notebook on the table. On the cover, she noticed a small sticker of a crescent moon. They didn't speak again for several minutes. The library was quiet, except for the soft rustle of pages and the faint tapping of keys from the computer corner. But Lila was aware of him. Aware of the way he tapped his pen against his notebook when thinking. Aware of how he paused before writing, as though measuring each word. Aware of the calmness that seemed to settle around him like an invisible shield. Finally, he glanced at her sketch. "That's the oak tree," he said softly. "You even got the bend in the trunk right." She blinked in surprise. "You know it?" "Yeah, I sit under it sometimes." He hesitated. "When it's not raining." She smiled faintly. "It's my favorite place." "I'm Noah," he added, offering a small, slightly nervous grin. "Lila." That was how it began. Over the next few weeks, their meetings became unspoken tradition, sometimes in the library, sometimes under the oak tree when the skies were clear and the air smelled of damp grass and autumn leaves. Noah turned out to be someone who noticed things most people overlooked. He noticed when Lila changed the color palette of her sketches from cool blues to warm oranges. He noticed when she seemed distracted and gently asked if she was okay. He noticed the tiny scar on her wrist and didn't ask about it, but treated it as if it were simply part of her story. Lila learned that Noah wrote poetry, not the dramatic kind filled with grand declarations, but quiet observations about everyday life. The way sunlight filtered through classroom blinds, the sound of trains in the distance at night, the comfort of sitting beside someone without needing to fill the silence. One afternoon, as golden leaves spiraled around them, Noah read one of his poems aloud. "It's not finished," he warned. Lila hugged her knees, listening. "It's about the oak tree," he said, "and how it leans like it's listening to the wind. I think it's waiting for something." "Or someone," Lila suggested. He glanced at her, a small smile tugging at his lips. "Maybe." There was something in that look, something warm and steady that made her heart shift in a way she hadn't expected. Love, she realized, wasn't loud. It was this. Winter crept in slowly, wrapping the world in frost and pale skies. The oak tree stood bare against the cold, its branches stretching like ink lines across a grey canvas. Lila and Noah continued meeting, now with scarves wrapped around their necks and steaming cups of hot chocolate balanced carefully in gloved hands. One day, Lila found Noah sitting alone beneath the tree, his notebook closed and his expression distant. "Hey," she said gently, sitting beside him. He looked up, forcing a smile. "Hey." "What's wrong?" He hesitated, then exhaled slowly. "My mum got offered a job in Manchester. We might move." The words felt like icy water down Lila's spine. "Oh." "It's not definite," he added quickly. "But it's likely." She stared at the frost-tipped grass, trying to steady her breathing. She had never thought about endings, Their friendship had felt like something rooted, like the oak itself, steady and certain. "When?" she asked quietly. "After this term." The space between them felt heavier than the winter air. "I'll miss this place," Noah said softly. "The tree, the library," he hesitated. "You." Lila's chest tightened. "You'll find another tree," she said, attempting a smile, "and another library. There's only one you." The simplicity of his words struck deeper than any grand speech could have. They sat in silence, shoulders almost touching, both aware that time had suddenly become precious. The weeks that followed were filled with unspoken emotions. Every shared laugh felt sharper, every glance lingered a little longer. Lila found herself drawing less and watching Noah more, memorizing the way his eyes crinkled when he laughed, the way he brushed curls from his forehead when concentrating. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon in streaks of pink and gold, Noah handed her his notebook. "It's finished," he said. She opened it carefully. The poem was longer now. It spoke of a tree that leaned towards someone who came to sit beneath it, of quiet conversations and shared silences, of how even if seasons changed and winds carried people elsewhere, the memory of warmth could remain rooted in the bark. At the bottom of the page he had written, "Some people feel like home. Even if you have to leave them, they stay with you." Lila's vision blurred. "I don't want to say goodbye," she whispered. "Then don't," he replied gently. "Say see you." She looked up at him. "Do you believe that?" "I believe some connections don't disappear just because the distance grows." The sky behind him glowed in soft firelight hues, and in that moment, Lila understood something she hadn't before. Love wasn't about possession. It was about presence. It was about choosing to care, even when it was hard. The last day of term arrived with clear skies and a chill in the air. Students bustled through corridors, laughter echoing as lockers slammed shut. Lila found Noah waiting beneath the oak tree. "I thought you might be here," she said. "Where else would I be?" He handed her a small box. Inside was a delicate silver pendant, shaped like a tiny oak leaf. "So you don't forget," he said. "I won't forget," she replied, her voice trembling. She reached into her bag and pulled out a sketchbook. Inside were drawings she had never shown him, pages filled with images of the oak tree in every season and small details, his notebook on the grass, 2 steaming cups of hot chocolate, shadows sitting side by side. On the final page, she had drawn the tree at sunset, with 2 figures beneath it, not touching him, but close enough that their shoulders almost met. He stared at it for a long moment. "It's perfect," he said softly. The wind rustled through the branches above them. "I'm glad it was you," Lila said suddenly. He looked at her, surprised. "What?" "My quiet love story. I'm glad it was you." For a heartbeat, neither moved. Then Noah stepped closer, not dramatically, not urgently, just enough that the space between them disappeared. "You changed me," he said, in the best way. They didn't need fireworks. They didn't need a soundtrack. They just stood there, beneath the leaning oak tree, knowing that something real had taken root. When the time came to leave, it wasn't loud. It was a long look, a shared breath, a whispered, "See you." And somehow that felt stronger than goodbye. Spring arrived months later, carrying with it new blossoms and softer air. Lila still visited the oak tree. She still sketched. She still wore the silver leaf pendant. Some days were harder than others. Some evenings she read through Noah's poem again and felt the ache of distance. But she also felt something else. Hope. They texted. They shared photos, him with new streets and unfamiliar parks, her with the oak tree bursting into green again. The connection stretched across miles, but didn't snap. One afternoon, as sunlight filtered through fresh leaves, Lila received a message. "I'm visiting next weekend. Meet me under the tree." Her heart raced. The following Saturday, she stood beneath the oak tree, nerves fluttering wildly. The branches were alive with green, the air warm and buzzing with life. Footsteps approached. She turned. Noah stood there, slightly taller, curls a bit shorter, eyes just as warm. "Hi," he said. "Hi." For a moment they simply looked at each other, as if confirming that the months apart had been real, and that this moment was too. "You kept coming here," he said. "Of course." He smiled. "So did I. In my head." The breeze stirred the leaves above them, sunlight dancing between branches. Love, Lila realized, wasn't about never changing. It was about growing, like roots stretching deeper underground, unseen but strong. They began walking across the field together, talking about everything and nothing. The future felt wide and uncertain, but not frightening. Because now she knew. Some love stories don't need to be loud. They don't need dramatic beginnings or perfect endings. Sometimes they begin with a simple question in a quiet library. And sometimes they last, not because of promises shouted into the sky, but because of two people who choose, again and again, to sit beneath the same tree and listen. And under the leaning oak, with sunlight warming their shoulders, Lila understood. The quietest love can be the strongest of all.